Hi, everyone. Dr. Danenberg is here today to explain how he saved his own life after a September 2018 incurable bone cancer. His diagnosis was 3 to 6 months to live. I invited this impressive human to share his life tips because I'm fascinated that some claim veganism saved their life from cancer and other issues, while others espouse meat consumption to save their life. I have a lot more to talk about with Dr. Al. We might just go right into questions and then I'm going to give more of an intro, but I did want you to know that Dr. Danenberg goes by Dr. Al. He is a periodontist. He was in private practice for 44 years. He incorporated ancestral nutrition and lifestyle with his leading edge laser protocol to treat periodontal disease. I have a lot more intro to go over with Dr. Danenberg, and we'll do that in a moment. But I just want to ask you, Dr. Danenberg, where do you live? Maybe a little bit about your family, and then I'd love to go right into how you saved your own life.
Absolutely. Thanks. First of all, just thanks for the opportunity. I love doing this, and any pathway you want to go down is fine with me. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I have no idea. So where do I live? I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I have a wife who I met in the 9th grade, and we've been married since 1969. I have 2 adult children, 3 grandchildren. They're dispersed. My son and his family live in Charlotte, North Carolina. My daughter lives and her family live in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm kind of in between.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to come back on screen, and I want to explain that to everyone. The reason I go off screen a lot, my style is you're here to listen to Dr. Danenberg, so I want you to hear him, see him, and I'll be in and out asking questions. So the place I want to start, Dr. Danenberg, is the reason I started my show is I had pretty severe anxiety, probably would have been diagnosed as depression now that I think about it. It was almost 2 years. And I realized looking back in and out of my life, I had anxiety different points in my life, but this was really bad. And I had to figure out because I didn't care if I woke up in the morning. I wasn't going to do anything harmful to myself, but I thought life isn't very joyful. So I could be having a conversation with someone beautiful like you, Dr. Danenberg, out in nature, and I don't feel joy. My gut feels a lot of doom. And speaking of gut, I want to start with that. Can you let us know how you helped yourself from that 3 to 6 month diagnosis, and tell us about the gut? Is it related?
Well, everything relates to the gut. I will tell you that practically every disease, maybe every chronic disease known to man, is related to something going wrong in the gut, the microbiome in the gut, the thin epithelial barrier that separates everything from the gut to the rest of the body. And all of this literally affects the circulatory system with chronic systemic inflammation affecting every cell in the body. And that, in my opinion, is where disease, for the most part, begins, chronic disease.
So if I were to summarize what you're saying, I have a friend, Dr. Sabine Hazen, who lives in Ventura County, and she's doing a lot of clinical trials regarding the gut and even regarding the virus. I believe she's one of the first to really discuss this, how the gut is related to this virus and how it affected different people. So if you can share with us some tips on how you saved your own life in terms of eating, because a lot of people like ChrisBeatCancer.com, I listened to him first, and he was saying how veganism saved his gut cancer, and you had, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your cancer and how you think differently.
Don't forget that he had surgery to remove the cancer. Remember that. And then he did what he did. So cancer is an interesting and complex process. Probably all cancer is the same in that it is a disease of metabolic dysfunction and mitochondrial dysfunction. It is not specifically a disease of genetic dysfunction, although genetics play a part, and you have different predilections to a cancer. You may be at higher risk of cancer, but your epigenetics, the things that you do to yourself with food as well as externally, have a direct effect on your immune system, which has a direct effect on the ability to fight cancer. You and I have cancer cells every day in our body, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have cells that go to a state of dysfunction, and they could be and will be cancerous if they weren't stopped. And there are several methods that our body provides to stop these cells from becoming cancerous and full-blown metastatic diseases. And that is that the cell itself may recognize that things are not going right, and it kills itself off, called apoptosis. In other situations, your immune system, if it's healthy, and we can talk about why it would be and would not be healthy, but if it's healthy and it's functional and robust, it will sense these cells that are going haywire, and it will allow white blood cells to get into the system, going after these cancer cells and literally gobbling them up so that they do not reproduce in the body. So the body has all these cells that are having issues, and it takes care of itself. So cancer is the problem where the cells are allowed to repopulate in a malignant state, meaning that they don't function within their organ, and those cells become the malignancy. So once that happens, every cancer is different because it occurs in different parts of the body. But in the initial stages, it is probably all cancer is related to the metabolic or mitochondrial dysfunction. So what I did was, and my story is kind of interesting because once I was diagnosed, you know, you got to understand, here I am, 71 years, I'm 75 now, but in those days when it happened in September 2018, I was 71 years old, had a very successful practice. I was speaking and writing about periodontal disease and incorporating nutrition in a very active way with my periodontal patients, at least for the first 6 years or the last 6 years of my career. And here I felt like I was a senior poster boy for health. And all of a sudden, I had this problem with my shoulder that was painful. Went to my back, went to my chest. Eventually, I got to my doc, and who's a buddy of mine. We've been, I've been working with him for 35 years. So we have this conversation about what's going on. And after a variety of tests, the differential diagnosis is lymphoma, leukemia, or multiple myeloma. Here I am thinking I am extremely healthy with maybe a muscle tear or a ligament pull in my shoulder that got to other parts of my body. And all of a sudden I have cancer. It's devastating. The load, the emotional load was devastating to me. But I was very realistic, and my wife is extremely supportive. We are hearing this diagnosis, which is incurable, and I am given 3 to 6 months to live. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the only thing that's going to matter to me is quality of life. If I only have a short period of time to live, I'm not going to do things like chemotherapy, in my opinion, to destroy my immune system, which is already damaged from this bone marrow cancer, which I have. I need to do whatever I can do to support my immune system and maintain a quality of life until it's over. So my thinking is, I'm rejecting chemo. My thinking is, I need to do a lot of investigation. And it wasn't like I knew everything at that moment to do, because I didn't. I had to do a lot of research. I went from protocols to protocols. I started with my unconventional protocols, which are now 11 unconventional protocols, but that's not how I started. I had to figure it out and tweak what I was doing and change my mind quite a bit along the way. But I did know that whatever I did, it must be to support an immune system that is very robust. I knew that I couldn't make myself healthy like I would have been if I didn't have cancer. But I did know that there must be something that I could do to make my body heal as best as possible. So I went along those lines, and it was uncovered, or I was uncovering the ideas of a very, very healthy, nutritious, anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense diet or way of eating, and supporting my gut microbiome, which I knew was so critical to start with. And then the other things in life that are epigenetic, meaning good exercise, control of emotional or chronic stress, trying to get good sleep, and doing other things with meditation that could support my overall health and well-being. So that's where I went, and that's what I do today.
Thank you. We're going to get into a lot more detail. And you reminded me of a pretty fascinating story. And that is, you mentioned epigenetics. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that term possibly was coined by Dr. Scientist Bruce Lipton. Is that correct? Do you think epigenetics?
Oh, I do not know, but I know what Bruce Lipton has talked about. He's a brilliant guy, but I'm not sure if he can coin that or not. I don't know.
So I was listening to Dr. Bruce Lipton, and in May of 2019, there was a big convention in Pasadena, California, run by Dr. Rashid Buttar and Del Bigtree, all these names I never heard of. I just knew Bruce Lipton, and 4 or 5 other people were there. And I asked everyone I knew. No one would come with me to this convention. So my son, who was 19 at the time, he's now 21, came with me. Thank God I had someone to go with. So I stayed for the weekend. And among the topics over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 days, they discussed was there's going to be a passport coming where you have to put some things in your body. And if you don't put those things in your body, a passport's coming where you're not going to be able to travel or do what you want. I thought they're a little strange. They're a little dramatic. Lo and behold, comes December, they're talking about this. Come February, March, 9 months later, oh my gosh, I remembered back to Pasadena. My son says, Mom, I have the chills right now. He says, I still tell people this story that my mom and I, 9 months ahead, heard this was coming. And then it happened. Just fascinating. But the reason I brought that up is you're talking about the gut microbiome. And my father, 9 months later, he gets this virus from us because he asked us to visit. We didn't want to. And what was fascinating is 2 of us didn't get this virus, but he and my mother did. And they were approaching 80 years old. Now, who didn't do well of all of us? My father, who was obese, sedentary, AFib, slow growing prostate cancer. So then my mind said, whoa, I put together what they said in March or May of 2019, looking at my father, he's inflamed, and talking about the gut microbiome. So I want to ask you about that. I want to relate either possibly talking about the virus. Have you heard of patients or some of your clients being affected in certain ways because they were inflamed, so the virus affected them a certain way, and then relating that as well to cancers?
Well, of course, this virus affects everybody in different ways, but the fact that if you have a robust immune system, meaning you have a very healthy method to fight external microbes and viruses, then you will fare better than a person that doesn't. And a person like your dad with all those comorbidities would have significant gut dysbiosis, significant problems with their gut microbiome, and significant chronic systemic inflammation already. And then they are given another load of this virus, it's going to affect them significantly more. Now, the virus affects people sometimes just the respiratory issue, sometimes the intestinal issue. It affects a lot of people in different ways, but it all has to do with your body's ability to fight off infection. We have been fighting infection ever since we have been evolving for 2.5 million years. So our immune system is nothing new. It's the reason that we are who we are, and the reason that we thrive is because we put nutrients into our body that are bioavailable, that support all the metabolic pathways known to the human body. And we are able to avoid all of the other factors that can destroy the gut microbiome. And there are many, of which one is the diet, but many, many others that can affect the gut microbiome. But if we can live a lifestyle where it's not affecting in a negative way the gut microbiome, and we're putting in bioavailable nutrients in proper ratios, then our body can do exactly what it's supposed to do, and that is stay healthy and heal. I mean, we're all going to die, but at least we're going to be fighting the fight that our body is designed to fight. And this virus is just one of those things. I did have COVID, and it's interesting. I had COVID, and I'm not vaccinated. I had COVID. I'm thinking about when it was. I think it was July or August of 2021. And when I got COVID, well, I'll just preface that with saying that I know of cancer patients that were vaccinated, got COVID, and they died. And either that or they were hospitalized with some serious complications. And if they didn't die, their cancer really progressed even faster. Now, in my situation, again, so in my diagnosis and prognosis in September 2018, I immediately started to improve my immune system as best as I could. And now let's say when I got COVID, it was already July of 2021. So I've already outlived this prognosis quite a bit. Yet I got COVID. I was sick. It was terrible as far as debilitating. It was extremely tired and exhausting for me, but I never had to take medicine. I never had to go to the hospital, and I survived. I survived very well. I probably had what's called long COVID for a while because symptoms persisted and it really weakened me, but I did extremely well compared to what my body was undergoing already. And that was a malignancy that was incurable. So COVID, I think, whatever it's going to do, and it can be extremely damaging to do, given a person that does have a strong immune system or a person that has a weak immune system, that person with a weak immune system will have much more severe reaction and probably or possibly die. And the other person with a strong immune system may still have a bad time with it, but survives and maybe not even need hospitalization.
I love that. I wanted to get into some parts of your book. The one that I read is Your Gut Killing You? What a perfect title. And I really feel this is such an important book. You know, I just interviewed Dr. Ovadia, and I said it's probably one of the most important books of 2021, 22, and 23. And I'm going to add your book to that because I just kept reading and wanted to read more and more and more. I really think you'll enjoy Dr. Danenberg's book, but what really helped me is you told me to get it on the Kindle app, which I'd never done before. So through my phone, through the Kindle app is where I read your book. So thank you for encouraging me because I always read a paper book. So I'm very modern now. Thank you. So I wanted to get into exercise because this is something I noticed that I don't know how many people are talking about. There's got to be someone. This is what I noticed, Dr. Danenberg, is I was on Facebook. I'm no longer on Facebook. They destroyed my account, which we can talk about privately one day. Why would they do that to me? I don't know. But I had almost 3,000 friends and contacts, and I'm gone and I can't get back on. Even when I try, they know who I am. I tried from different computers and wow, they're good. So what I noticed was friends were saying, my friend is a long distance runner and they didn't do well with this virus. My friend is a vegan. They didn't do well with this virus. My friend is a bodybuilder. And so I started looking up online, long distance running bodybuilders. Like, I thought to myself, why are they not doing well? You'd think they're healthy. So this is what I came up with, but I'd like to hear from you because you mentioned this in your book. So I think anything that's extreme, maybe if we're severe vegan, I don't know if that's the best. If we're severe carnivore, I don't know. You'll let us know if that's best. But I noticed, why are these severe exercisers, like I said, bodybuilders or running, they're not doing well? And why would you do well? And my father do well, and I do well with this virus. But the severe exercisers who we think are the top of the top and they're so healthy don't seem to be. And it might be something called TOFI. I don't know, you know, the thin outside, fat inside. Maybe their body's reacting in a way that's preserving fat or changing their gut microbiome. I don't know. But I wanted to mention that because my father, I'm going to relate it back to my father, Dr. Danenberg, when he was hospitalized with this virus, it was because we used the pulse oximeter and saw his oxygen go down to 88. So we felt he was in dying mode. Rushed him to the hospital. My mom had him at our local hospital. I said, Mom, you know, I don't know how this hospital treats this virus. I would like to pull him out. And I knew Dr. Thomas Yadigar was at Tarzana Hospital, and he was saving lives left and right because our mutual friend, who's your client, Cheryl Fleischman, that's her doctor. And I saw him all over the internet being interviewed. So I said, Mom, let's pull him out. We signed an AMA against medical advice. I pull my dad out of this hospital. I take him to this other hospital where I learned, I said, Mom, I want to come to his follow-up. So my father's life was saved. He's fine. He's good today. He never had long COVID or anything. How could that be? An inflamed, obese, unhealthy person is fine today. So what I learned from this physician was, hey, most hospitals are treating people for pneumonia, and I treated him for cytokine storm. So in your book, you mentioned cytokine storm and other inflammation. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, whether we're talking about for cancer and other disease, or in my father's situation. Could we talk about cytokine storm and what that means?
Well,
Or
your body, yeah. So your body, and I'm not an expert on all of the pathways, of course, but your body's communicating with one another. Every cell in your body communicates with every other cell. And one of them is a way of chemically producing cytokines that literally create messages that can communicate with other areas of the body. And in inflammation, what it is telling the body is to fight and create an inflammatory reaction. And when you get a severe inflammatory reaction, that would be a product possibly of a cytokine storm. And when you have that much effect of the body's immune system, it can overcome the body. Now, again, I am not the person to speak about the specifics of these metabolic pathways. That's not my field. But I do know that when you are stressing the body and you're producing all of this immune reaction, and maybe your body is also not functioning well from the immune system to start with, the overreaction of the immune system can be overpowering to other metabolic pathways that could cause death. In the concept of inflammation, the immune system reacts to a pathogen by creating cytokines and working with the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system to gobble up and kill the pathogen. And when it learns what the pathogen is, it makes antibodies so that if that pathogen or antigen enters the body in the future, it can enable the immune system immediately to fight this particular specific pathogen. If you have too much pathogen or too much of a reaction from the immune system, it is overwhelming the body. And again, I don't know all the specific pathways that are affected. In a case, for example, when you're talking about extreme athletes, when they're exercising to the extreme, their body is creating what's called free radicals. And this creates oxidative stress.
I think you said free radicals, right?
Are
your
radicals.
computer delayed a little. Free radicals, right? Okay.
Right. So these free radicals are byproducts of normal metabolic function, but when they're accumulating and they're not neutralized, it can damage cells and DNA and can create mitochondrial dysfunction. And mitochondria are the batteries of the cells and progress to a variety of diseases. And so when that athlete who is over exercising, possibly creating such a serious high level of free radicals and oxidative stress, could be a trigger for his death or her death because of other things that are going on within their system. And all stresses can do that. All stresses in the body, emotional stress, metabolic stress, like nutrient stress, those other issues, anti-nutrients, things that are damaging the gut, can create a host of free radicals that will increase more oxidative stress to the body and create this severe reaction to the body of disease. And it could be many diseases all at one time or just one particular organ system.
Thank you. You know, I felt so blessed, Dr. Danenberg, during this time when my father was moving from one hospital to the next and then seeing him thrive and survive. What I noticed was I felt so blessed that I had a friend on the East Coast. I have a friend since birth. He's a COVID lung specialist, and because he's a lung specialist in the hospital setting. And then this Dr. Yadigar, who saved my father's life, I was able to ask the questions, what patients are you seeing not doing well? And the theme always seemed to be extreme inflammation. Because I asked all the questions of my friends. How about asthma? They'd say, no, asthma's doing fine. How about COPD? No, unless they're on oxygen, they do okay. How about cancer? No, they're doing okay unless they're actively in cancer treatment. What they taught me was those who weren't doing well were typically alcoholics, obese or chubby, often with diabetes. But they said diabetes in general did fine as long as it was controlled. I'm trying to think, who else did they tell me? Yeah, that was about it. So I asked the questions and I got answers. So I felt a lot more comfortable with what was going on. So basically, our family was able to save my father's life because instead of allowing fear, which shuts down the critical thinking of the brain, we were able to think clearly. And I think that's why you had such a great experience with your situation, is instead of just having fear and following along with what everyone else is doing, you were able to come up with your own protocol. So I wanted to explain a little bit more about you and how you help people, Dr. Danenberg. So I'm going to read a little bit more. In June 2014, Dr. Al received the Certified Functional Medicine Practitioner, so he's a CFMP designation, as well as the certification as a certified primal health coach. In July 2017, Electra Press released his book, Crazy Good Living, which is based on ancestral nutrition and lifestyle. In August 2020, he published 2 mini ebooks on Amazon for download, Better Belly Blueprint and Is Your Gut Killing You? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How do you help people? How can they reach out to you? Because I can also show your website.
Sure. What I don't sell anything. I don't sell any products. Basically, I am not promoting supplements and all kinds of miracle drugs. What I do is recommend an animal-based diet, and I call it the Better Belly Blueprint, which is basically a strict animal-based section of this way of eating, meaning ruminant animals and all of their organs and fats, maybe 70% or more of the volume of a plate of food, and maybe 30% or less some raw honey, maybe some selected fruits, and very, very few vegetables that are extremely low in oxalates, phytates, and lectins. What I'm trying to do is mimic our human evolution. Our species has evolved over 2.5 million years eating certain types of foods and avoiding certain things that we unfortunately are exposed to, because obviously our primal ancestors were not used to eating glyphosate in their foods or the chemicals that are in our environment. And they weren't involved with the types of maybe emotional stress and other things that we're dealing with today. They obviously had their own emotional stress, being eaten by a wild tiger or being killed by other warring tribes or whatever, but still. So we have evolved, and there's great science that shows our evolution is we are omnivores. We eat meat and we eat plants, but we lean towards eating an animal-based diet. Miki Ben-Dor, who is an Israeli archaeologist with 2 other archaeologists, wrote a very extremely in-depth paper that was published in 2021 that showed from a variety of interdisciplinary methods that we literally prefer animal-based foods. And that's how we have evolved physiologically and biologically. And those foods are what I try to incorporate, or that concept is what I try to incorporate into the Better Belly Blueprint. So the best foods are ruminant animals, which would in the United States basically would be beef and lamb and all of their organs, cartilage, animal fat, bone marrow, all of these things, because every nutrient our body requires is in those foods. Now, just eating a ribeye and eggs every day is not a healthy animal-based diet. You need to eat the meat, but you need to eat the liver and the kidney and the heart and the spleen and the pancreas, and also the animal fat and the cartilage and bone marrow. And how you get that is either those all organs that you buy and prepare if you like them. Most people don't. Or you can get those organs in a desiccated form. Now, these are not, in my mind, they're not supplements. Supplements are synthetically made, extracted elements that are not in their natural ratios. So if you were to buy desiccated liver from the right company, you would be buying the raw liver with nothing added or subtracted other than the water. All of the nutrients are still active in their proper ratios. And if you ate desiccated organs, you'll get the same effect as eating the raw organs or the raw organs that are cooked. So that is what I do personally, and that's what I write about. And that is where I get my nutrition. The fact that I avoid certain foods like nuts and seeds, which are extremely high in oxalates. I avoid practically all vegetables with very, very few exceptions. But I do include many fruits and raw honey because these are the foods that do not cause damage to the gut microbiome, and they do not bind to minerals and other nutrients that our body needs to absorb. So basically, like I said, the Better Belly Blueprint is about 70% of an strict animal related nose to tail diet, and 30% some plants, basically fruits, some raw honey, and very, very few veggies. That's my thinking, and that's how I believe that the human species has evolved to get the most benefit and to thrive. And that's what I do, I think, for myself as a cancer patient, as well as for any other person that wants to have a robust immune system. Again, I am not treating disease. I don't even claim to treat any disease, but I do state that I think there is a method to get a improved immune system so that your body can fight the fight that it's designed to fight. And that's where I think all humans should really be.
That is so well said. Just perfect. I wanted to show your website right now so you can discuss your site and how you help people. And then you're going to see on the screen what I'd love to talk about. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But your website, if I can see, there we go. Can you tell me where to go on your site so people know how your resources and how to reach out to you? But I can't hear you.
This is drdanenberg.com, as you can see.
Now I hear you.
This is so this is drdanenberg.com, drdanenberg.com. And when you were to go into that website, you'll see this navigation bar, and on the top where it says about, work with me, and so on and so forth. Basically what I do, like I said, I don't sell products, but what I do is offer a 12-week metabolic coaching program where I have clients literally from all over the world now who enroll with this program. And what I do is this: I need information about a person before I even work with them. So they literally fill out online a questionnaire. It's about 70 questions, some of which are yes and no, but most of the questions need to be have written answers. When they do write the answers down, they submit it and it comes directly to me. I also need to have them fill out a 3-day food journal. I need to know exactly what they eat and drink for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, whatever. I need to know what their bowel movements are like, their exercise patterns are like, how they feel actually when they are eating their meals, their emotional state. I want that information. That's part of the 3-day food journal. They fill it out, submit it online, comes directly to me. And I also need copies of digital dental x-rays, which I explain when I'm talking to the patient, but I need to see if there are any things evident or obvious to me in the jawbone or tooth structures that could be irritating and creating systemic inflammation. One of the problems with all of the medical doctors out there, all of the functional medicine people out there, even some dentists, the dentists don't realize the relationship with the rest of the body and the gut, but most of the other medical practitioners do not understand that certain things can be happening in the mouth, just like a big splinter in your big toe. And if it's not identified, you will never get healthy until that splinter is removed. I mean, if you had a splinter in your toe, it would be painful. It would be swollen and red. You know that you need to remove the splinter for it to heal. So if there are irritated areas in the bone, in the teeth, bleeding gum tissues, those types of things, those are literally splinters in your body, and they cause the immune system to fight an infection. The immune system is unsuccessful because the infection remains, and your immune system, it becomes dysfunctional and it becomes overloaded. And if you don't know these things, and it doesn't always have to cause pain or swelling to have these problems, if you don't know them, then the problems in the rest of your body may never be healed correctly. So I need to look at these areas in the x-ray. I'm not making a diagnosis on an internet, but I can identify suspicious areas and direct the person to other biologically oriented dentists in their zip code area to help them figure out and treat those problems in the mouth. So I'm looking at this questionnaire, the food journal, and their x-rays, and creating a goal. They're telling me what they want, and I'm trying to coach them to eat a healthier diet, a way of eating based on the things that they've told me that they're doing with their life.
And can we
as
discuss
well
that in
as-
part 2? Because we're about to log out for part 2. Is that okay, Dr. Danenberg? We'll have a lot
Sure.
more details in part 2. So stay tuned for part 2. Click below growth factor, subscribe, and the bell, and come back for part 2. We'll be right back.